So again, thank you all for taking the time. I'm very excited to speak with you. I know that times are interesting and we're all going through a lot, so I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me this morning. We're going to be speaking on how Reonomy can help unify your data in a time like this during a crisis. So just to give you a quick, brief agenda, we're going to walk through how Reonomy unifies you with data. We're also going to do a quick background, give you a little bit of a snapshot of under the hood and just how we work and the inner workings of behind what we're doing behind the scenes. Then I'm going to actually walk you through a live demo, which should be about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we're going to walk through question and answers at the end. Just so everyone is aware, I actually cannot see the panel right now. So I will get to your questions if you have them as they pop up. I'll make sure to answer them at the end. So just giving you the full context for those that aren't familiar with Reonomy, back in 2013, our founders took a quick snapshot of commercial real estate data and realized how archaic this current system is. There are all these different reporting systems, Land Records Division, Secretary of State information. There's private data, there's public data that's maybe not as accessible to some as it is to others. And then in certain states and in certain counties and in certain regions, it can be very difficult to get this information. So what Reonomy does is we take that, that asymmetric information and all these different data points and data ends, we put it in with machine learning to connect that fragmented world of commercial real estate data. And we've been doing this over the course of the last 7 years. We have $128 million raised year to date from some of the most serious venture-backed companies that you can be dealing with. And our goal is to build and has been over the last 7 years to build the most comprehensive data set that not just covers a local market, but actually does nationwide. So that way you have full access and insight into any given market that you want to potentially tackle. So as we think about property, how we work on the back end, right? And we talked about machine learning, but what does that actually mean? Imagine an Excel file. Imagine trying to comb through Excel sheets and looking at all these different data points with all these different building and block information, with different assessed parcel numbers. We actually look at every single data point that is associated with that given address and essentially assign it a Reonomy ID. Imagine it like a fingerprint, right? Each fingerprint is unique. It's specific to that given person. Similar to that, we use that Reonomy ID as our fingerprint to unify all those different data sets, run it through our data engines where we use our people, company, and property algorithms and piece all of that together to show it to you on our web app and also in our API and data offerings as well. So instead of having to comb through all that information, you can quickly access it by a click of a button. Now, how can we help during this time, right? Because I think now more than ever is a time to be innovative, to think outside the box, to evaluate how you've done business over the last few years. And quite frankly, this is a time where people are starving for human interaction. So there's no better time to actually pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone about their business or about their property or whatever might be going on in their life and make real connections during this time. Everyone is home for the most part. Most people are locked in their houses, unfortunately. But what Reonomy does is it gives you the ability to discover properties by literally using our filters and with a couple clicks of a button, narrowing down a list of properties that's the ideal fit for you. We give you the ability to quickly assess and do research by looking at the building and lot, the ownership information, tenants, sales, debt, tax information, and some financial information that we recently added with some of the CMBS data that we've integrated into the platform. And then lastly, do outreach, right? So the end all be all game is how do I get in touch with property owners? How do I actually make those conversations happen? And again, with a click of a button, you can literally see all the property owners, the contact information, phone numbers, mailing addresses, email addresses, and just continue to grow your business, especially at the time that we're in, and just the importance and stressing thinking outside the box and getting in front of as many people as possible. So when the economy does pick up, we can actually hit the ground running. So I'm going to actually walk you through a live demo now. I'm just going to quickly glance back at the questions. So I got a question from Amy, the sources of disparate data. So a third, we actually don't cover in the UK market. So that's a great question. I can actually answer this one offline, Amy, and I'll reach out to you directly. But where we pull our data sets from is a combination of public data and private data. So we have exclusive partnerships with Dun & Bradstreet, Info Group, Black Knight, and we actually pair that together with the publicly available data in addition to other private data sets that we can't name. It's our quote unquote secret sauce. So there's additional data sets that are being inputted into our system all at the same time simultaneously, and it's being updated on a bi-weekly, twice a week basis based on certain cadences. So we use pretty much every public data source that you can think of in addition to private data, and we layer it in together using that Reonomy ID. Amy, as soon as we can figure it out, I am going to get into the UK market. It is definitely a goal of ours. That was part of the Series D, raising that 60 million in the Series D. And Rich Sarkis, actually, if you watch our video, he's our former CEO, now executive chairman. That's one of his major goals, is getting in the UK. He's actually from England originally, but that is definitely on one of our goals in the near-term future. But just in the getting away from the UK and focusing on the US, and something that we've really strived over for the last 7 years, we cover 52 million commercial properties across the US. So this number in the top right corner is actually a live tracker and counting all the properties that you have access to within the Reonomy database. So there's two ways that you can discover, perform research, and actually do outreach on these properties. One is by typing in an address. So you can actually jump in here, start typing in an address and saying, okay, 767 3rd Avenue, New York, New York. This is our headquarters here in New York when we were able to go into the office. And quickly, as I mentioned before, you can see the building and lot, ownership, tenant, sales, debt, and tax information on this given property. But before we dive into the actual research component of this, I want to show you how to build a comprehensive list of properties by just clicking on a few filters. Lewis, do you provide contact information from property owners as well in the US? Absolutely. That is our bread and butter. We really pride ourselves on the transaction data and the accuracy of our contact information. We've done phone validation and email verification as well for the majority of our properties. So we will actually remove a property's email or phone number, and you can sort by and search by property information and contact information. I'll show you actually how to do that during the live demo. So as we jump into our filters, I always like to work left to right. So you can click anywhere in this white bar at the top of your screen. It doesn't matter. You don't necessarily have to click on this filter button. But for the purposes of this, so you can get very granular. You can look at name of the street. You can search by a specific zip code. For the purposes of this, I'm actually going to go into LA County. So as I start typing, as before, it'll start giving me suggestions based on what I'm typing. So with a click of a button, you can actually start seeing that number in the top right corner is your live tracker. So as you run queries, you can see the number of results before you actually get to the point and at the end where you're trying to figure out how many properties is this going to result in and what are my actual results going to be. So as you can see in the top right corner, we went from, again, that 52 million number, excuse me, and just by typing this in here in the top right corner, we quickly dropped down to 737,000. And just to clarify, before we go into this any further, what we define as a commercial asset is everything above a single family home. So you do have access to duplexes, triplexes, and above. which is also a great, we have a lot of brokers, investors that want to use this and identify maybe those smaller buildings that have been owned for a while, or maybe buildings that have been recently purchased in the last 3 to 5 years. And I'm going to show you how to leverage some of this data from multiple viewpoint. So we typed in our MSA, we narrowed down our location. The next step would be looking by asset type. Now we define the asset type based on how the county level classifies this data. So we also use some tenant information to make assumptions based on what tenants are in that specific property. So we break down in the commercial bucket, hospitality, office, mixed use, retail, pretty much anything that you would want to cover or have access to. Here's the industrial side of everything, multifamily, and as I mentioned before, duplexes and above, special purpose. This could be anything from marinas to funeral homes, golf courses, depending on how, again, the county classifies this information. Vacant land. And we have this other tab over here, which is more agricultural. Imagine breweries, imagine nurseries, pastures, and in addition to some public and semi-public properties. So for the purposes of this, again, this is a large data set to work with, 737,000 assets. I'm going to narrow this down to warehouses. So we've now narrowed down that list in the click of 2 buttons from 52 million properties down to 14,000. So as we jump moving left to right into our building and lot information, this is where we can get the physical characteristics of a given property and be able to narrow it down by year built, year renovated, total units, maybe a building area. For the purposes of this, I'm actually going to use building area, but you can imagine from a roofing perspective or a service provider perspective, or maybe you're investing in Class A buildings, or maybe you want to take a more risky approach and go after buildings that are older that haven't been renovated in a while. We can jump in here and say, hey, show me everything that's been built up to 1975, right? And we can also say, show me nothing that has been renovated since 2000. So we're putting these parameters at the end to say, hey, no one's put any money into this building. They haven't done any major renovations in the last 20 years. And it was built previous or at 1975. If I was looking at a multifamily building, I could come in here and I could type 23 units, maybe to 45 units, maybe an office building, right? But for the purposes, again, of this, I'm going to use building area and say, let's look at buildings between 5,000, warehouses, excuse me, between 5,000 and 30,000 square feet. Again, the idea of finding this needle in the haystack, we want to take it from this large, huge realm of commercial real estate and narrow it down to exactly what we're looking for. And just like that, we're down to 2,000 results. Now, some might think, hey, this is a great list of properties. This is exactly what I want to be doing and what I want to be going after. Let me start combing through. For me, this is still a little bit, this is a little large and not necessarily bite-sizable. So there's 2 things that we can do here. I'm going to actually come back to this ownership tab. We can look and search by an owner's name. So if I wanted to search by a specific person's name, they're John Smith, and type that in owner name, we can do so. We can also search by, and to answer your question, Lewis, we can search by and look at properties that only have phone numbers. So I only want to see properties that have phone numbers associated with the contact information. So let's actually keep that in there so we can see properties that have phone numbers associated with them. The next step would be tenants. So this is where, let's say we're looking for a retail space. We want to target triple net leases. We want to go after Walgreens. We want to go after the CVSs of the world. I can specifically type in a tenant name like a Walgreens, and that will give me all the results. I can also search by tenant type by the NAICS code. So if we wanted to do, any petroleum refineries, for this, let's do refrigerated warehousing and storage. To me, this is extremely relevant given that there are a lot of properties, there's a lot of a lot of people ordering a lot of food, a lot of people that are using Fresh Direct or Amazon to deliver their groceries because they're not leaving home, especially in a county like LA, which is seeing current spikes. We narrowed our list down to 2, so this would be exactly where I stopped. So I'm going to actually get rid of that, but I just wanted to show you that functionality. And you can also search by a website. So if I wanted to search by Amazon.com and put that in the tenant website, I can do so. And we'll pull all the properties associated with Amazon. And again, 0 results. But so as we jump into sales, this is where we can filter down and narrow down our list of properties by, let's say I'm an investor, right? And I want to see properties that haven't sold, or I'm a broker and I'm representing a buyer and I want to see properties that haven't sold in a given period of time. I can jump in here and say, hey, it's great that I'm looking at everything. It's nice to see. But in the past 5 years, I don't want to see anything that's sold in the last 5 years. The other thing that I'll highlight is we've actually developed a likely to sell feature. So if I check this box off and click likely to sell, this is through assumptions that we're making in addition to data that we have available on our back end and some of the algorithms that we're running on our end to show you properties that haven't sold in a while. There hasn't been any recent transactions, in addition to some other factors that are most likely to sell. So we can leave that in here if we'd like. This is a pretty good 79 results is exactly where I would want to be. If and when you want to add some additional layering of debt, and this is more specific for our lenders and our debt brokers, you can literally jump in here, type in a specific mortgage amount. I'll show you this actually afterwards once we look at this given search, and target a specific lender. Let's say it's a competitor. We can also target CMBS loans. We can look and see if they're on the watch list. We can target properties that have auction dates coming soon, or maybe some that are in the pre-foreclosure category and nearing that, can't pay their payments on their loans. We can also target by maturity dates. So we can say, hey, show me everything that has a balloon payment on this list in the next 2 years. And we've really narrowed down that list. Again, all the way from 52 million down to 2 properties that fit all of that criteria and the above. And we're able to do it in a matter of seconds, in a matter of a click of a few buttons. So just for the purpose of this, again, I'm just going to show you everything that fits in this bucket. On the right-hand side, the map is actually interactive. So let's say it's great. I'm looking all at LA County, but I really want to focus on downtown LA. There's a few things that I can do here. One is actually just narrow down to the list, or narrow down all the way down on a given property or a given cluster. I can actually draw a radius if I had a specific point or a specific need or a specific area that I'm focused in, draw that radius and see the 8 results in that given 1 mile radius around downtown LA. The other way that I can do this is I can actually say, hey, it's great that I'm looking at the radius, but let me see a polygon, right? I kind of have an understanding that I want to look everything around this given circle of highways and draw my own polygon to show everything again in that given area. Now, moving on to the property and how we actually perform research, I can jump into a given property, and this is what we call our property cards, and look at all the information I need to see. So we can look at the building, the year that it was built, the year that it was renovated. We can look at the ownership information. What we're able to do here, and this is a great example of Kevin here, who's the property owner, we're able to see the mailing address, which we also match down here. We also can show you, and what it's prompting me to do, we actually have a new system that we added where we can send direct mail to property owners. So you can send mailers to property owners direct from Reonomy. We print it, we send it, the owner receives mail, and it eliminates one of those steps that you have to take in order to send mail specifically to a property owner. We also have the phone numbers and email addresses associated here. So one feature before we move on that I want to show you all. Let's say it's great. We know that this person owns this one given property. What we can actually do is pop out this person's name into the window into the following window and look and see if they own anything else. Now, in this case, there's no results, so they do not. But just by clicking on someone's name, we can pierce all the LLCs, all the reporting owning entities across the United States and look at and see a property owner's portfolio and be able to actually fully understand what they've invested in and what they've historically done before in the past. Now, as we continue to move on, here's this tenant information, which is also, we can actually export this information, the tenant information, out into an Excel. It looks like this person is actually, it's owner occupied because he is the tenant as well. Here's the sales history on this property. So back in December 1st of 2011, Kevin bought this from Terry. You can see the transaction history if it was a related party transfer. This looks like it was a deed, so it was a related party transfer. You can see that here. I'm reading that from document type. The other interesting part is we can actually take a quick snapshot of the debt information. So this person took out a refinance back in 2015 from Bank of America for $450,000. And again, we are just trying to arm you with as much information as humanly possible about this property. So as you pick up the phone and call this person, you're armed to the teeth and know exactly what you're speaking with. Half of the battle is sounding informed and understanding and sounding like you've done your research on this property. And we give you the ability to filter through those public and private data sets that we have available to us, all by a click of a button. This note section is for you. You can actually take notes within the platform. Call back owner in 3 days. This will timestamp it. I can also notify people on a given team. So these are all the people that are actually directly report to me, and I can send them, hey, Jack, take a look at this property. This will notify Jack, send him an email, and ping him directly to open Reonomy and view Reonomy within that given within the platform, and take a look at the note, and he can be looking at and viewing the same thing. Again, especially important as we're all spread out across the US and have different, we have teams in different places, people are working remote. Just having that efficiency and making sure that you're able to communicate as a team is all the most important. The other quick thing that I want to highlight here is while the map's interactive, you can actually jump around from property to property and start clicking on different parcels. We've geocoded every tax parcel across the US for commercial properties, and you're able to just quickly click on properties and see what's in the surrounding neighborhood with all the building and lot information that you would want and need access to. Now, I know that was a lot. There's a lot that we can do, a lot that we can cover. Just quickly, the debt information for any lenders that are out there. We have origination dates. You can target a specific lender. So if I wanted to target Bank of America loans, let's say that were originated in the last 2 to 3 years, I can do so across the entire US. And we can start contacting property owners for maybe refinance opportunities or understand what their positions are at the given state right now. But there's a lot that we can do from a lending perspective as well, where we can look at maturity dates. We can look at loans over a certain size. Let's say we want to target $5 million loans with a max of 25 million. 25 million. We can do so again across the entire country, all by a click of a button and in a matter of seconds. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. I am going to I just got a question about the export. So yes, so 2 ways that we can export. One is through an API. The other is we can actually export all this information into an Excel sheet or into a CSV file, all by a click of a button. So let's do the first 50 really quickly. We can export this information. This job will start running in the top bottom left corner. It will have all the information that we have available in the platform, the contact information, the tenant contact information, in addition to that building and lot and debt information that we were looking at before. So you do have the ability to export all that information to an Excel sheet or a CSV file. And I'm actually going to show you that just really quick, Joe, so you have an understanding or an idea of what this looks like. So let me actually share my screen again. So here we have the Excel file. Here's all the property information, the lat long, address, APN, all the lot area, MSA, all the building details. Here's the contact information for those properties, the tenant information on those properties, in addition to the tenant contacts. So you have all that just readily available, and it was super quick, like I said before, nice and easy to pull out. It's just literally a click of a button once you selected the properties, and you just pull it right out. But I'm going to stop there. I'm going to leave the last few minutes here for any questions. I see that we had some trickle in. So are there asset types that are more difficult to find data on in other regions in the US that are more difficult to pull relevant property data on? Absolutely. So a good example is multifamily. So one strength of Reonomy is that we treat every property in every location the same, right? So our data doesn't necessarily take a hit or look at a given region and say, oh, well, too bad we can't find information on it. That's where a lot of our private data partners come from, and the ability to parse it with some of that publicly available data. So some counties, maybe some rural areas, some tertiary markets that might not have as much information, we're actually able to backfill it with private data. Contact information, it varies on state. There's different states. Wisconsin's a good example. They don't have a Secretary of State, so you actually don't have to file your LLC or reported owning entity through a government agency. So it's a little bit more difficult to parse together. But again, we're using that machine learning and algorithms to piece it all together. So we're actually at a high advantage, and that's why we're able to cover as much as we do, because we're essentially treating every property the same and every market the same, and just piecing it together the same way with that thumbprint that we were using to parse all that data together. So yes, the search results we can export through an API. Appreciate the comment on the UI. It's really smooth. We made a lot of changes internally to really emphasize and put an emphasis on making this streamlined and making it quick and easy to use. Yeah. So do you provide occupancy rates of multifamily? We do have some occupancy information and some financials, and I can actually show you that quickly. Again, just because it takes a few seconds to do. If not, if I don't have time, I would love for you to stop by our booth and actually run through a demo with one of our account executives, and they can show you how to find that information. In addition to, we have a free trial, but we have, with that CMBS data comes with a small subset of properties, about 200,000 properties, 250,000 of those properties. We have the financials and occupancy rates on. That's one data set that we're continuing to go after and get more information on. It's a little bit more difficult to stay current on that. As you can imagine, tenants change, things change quickly, but we do have some occupancy information and financials on properties. Confidence. So Johannes, that's a great question. So we update our information on a bi-weekly basis. We update it twice a week. So it's on different cadences. Imagine 20 different feeds, 25 different feeds, all updating on different cadences, but it's being refreshed on an ongoing basis. There might be a slight lag given the county reporting or when a building transacts, or maybe there's a transfer in ownership. But as soon as that information is updated from the source document that you'd be searching it through or from, we update it in our system on an ongoing basis and make sure that it's as relevant and concurrent as humanly possible. Small startups who want to build their product on top of Reonomy data. Yes, so we do have API offerings. We do have integrations with certain systems. We obviously would love to understand what you're using that data for and how we can help and be of a service, but we absolutely do. If you do have interest or do want to speak to someone, you can reach out to and see there's a request information on our API on our website that you can jump right on, and someone from our enterprise team will reach out to you directly. With that, we came right up to 10:30. If you do have any questions, again, I highly recommend you stop by our booth. Ask some of our staffers there any questions that they have. You can always reach out directly to me. You can email sales@reonomy.com or info@reonomy.com, and we will get back to you as soon as humanly possible. The other suggestion that I have too, just to get comfortable with it and play with it, is sign up for a free trial. Give it a whirl yourself, and make sure that you you spend some time in there. It's, as previously mentioned, the UI is very smooth. It's very easy to use. And now that you've seen a walkthrough, I'm highly confident that you'll be able to jump in there and start using it. So thank you all for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know it's Tuesday morning, and there's a lot of places you could be or maybe can't be. But again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the conference. The other thing that I'd recommend doing is we have our Chief Data Officer, in addition to our Executive Chairman, Rich Sarkis, speaking later this week. So I'd highly recommend just taking if you have additional time and are curious to learn more from the people that are actually doing it on the data side, please stop by and check them out on their session. So thanks again. Have a great day. Look forward to speaking to you all, and good luck out there.